What if the only thing holding you back is the story you keep telling yourself when no one else is listening? Not the world, not your past, not luck or time or circumstance, but the quiet picture you've been carrying inside of who you think you are and who you believe you are not. We all carry a mirror the world can't see. It doesn't hang on a wall. It lives in the way we walk into rooms, the way we shrink or rise in silence, the way we answer opportunity or turn away before it knocks twice. The truth is simple. You will never rise beyond the image you hold of yourself, not because you're not capable, but because you won't let yourself see it. You cannot become what you secretly believe you're unworthy of, and you will not keep what you subconsciously feel you don't deserve. So let me ask you quietly, without rush, who told you who you are? Whose voice was it that carved the edges of your self-worth? Was it the silence of a father who never looked you in the eye, the backhanded compliments dressed up as love, the classroom laughs, the job you didn't get? Or was it your own voice, rehearsing old doubts like prayers? Because the image you hold of yourself was never born in truth. It was born in repetition, and what has been repeated can be rewritten. You don't have to shout to change your life. You just have to whisper something new, long enough, gently enough, until it starts to feel like yours. That's how change begins. Not in fireworks, but in the quiet decision to stop living in a reflection someone else handed you. To look at yourself without the old filters of failure. To stand where you are, not who they said you were, and ask, what if I've been more than enough all along? Because here's the truth. We live out the roles we believe we're cast in. But what if the stage was yours to rewrite? No one outgrows their self-image. They either upgrade it, or they repeat it. Year after year. Success after sabotaged success. Love after quiet self-abandonment. So tonight I'll ask you something the world rarely does. Will you choose to believe in a version of you that you've never fully allowed to exist? Will you believe in the part of you that never needed permission, only recognition? Because the world doesn't change when others see you differently. It changes the moment you do. Speak gently to yourself. Stand still long enough to meet the person behind the mask. And when you do, when you finally see yourself not through the eyes of shame or scarcity, but through the eyes of grace, you won't have to chase growth. You'll simply stop resisting it. And in that quiet shift, your life will begin again. There is a moment in every life where we realize the cage we're sitting in doesn't have a lock. We grow up thinking we're shaped by the world, by rules, roles, circumstances. But what shapes us more than anything is the quiet agreement we make with our limitations. Not the actual boundaries, but our belief in them. A bird raised in a small cage forgets it has wings. Not because it's incapable of flight, but because flight was never part of its story. It grew up seeing metal where there could have been sky. That's how many of us live. We inherit a story about who we are. You're not smart enough. You're not brave enough. You're too quiet, too much, too slow, too strange. And we accept it like a seed accepts the soil it's planted in. But what if the problem isn't the limit itself, but how tightly we hold on to it? What if your limits weren't facts, but decisions? Some made long ago in rooms where you didn't have a voice. Others made yesterday, when you doubted your worth again in silence. The danger is not that we are limited. Everyone is, in some way. The danger is that we stop asking whether the limit is real. We carry old blueprints and call them maps. But how many times have you walked away from something, a dream, a relationship, a calling, not because it was out of reach, but because you believed your growth doesn't come from fighting the limit. It comes from questioning its authority. Ask yourself, who gave me this line I won't cross? Why do I still believe it's mine? Because the truth is, limits lose their grip the moment you stop giving them your name. And that's the quiet turning point. The moment when you realize that what once defined you doesn't have to anymore. You can't outgrow a wall if you believe the wall is part of you. But you can step back. You can look at it with new eyes. You can wonder softly, curiously, what if this isn't who I am anymore? We're not made of stone. We're made of breath, memory, and choice. The version of you that once needed to play small maybe to stay safe, or be loved, or avoid disappointment. That version isn't your prison. It's just a chapter, and you're allowed to outgrow it. You're allowed to become someone who no longer fits inside the old frame. The mind is strange. It would rather live in a familiar pain than an unfamiliar freedom. But freedom begins the moment you challenge the belief that your limits are law. What would happen if you loosened your grip just a little? If you stopped repeating the old lines and began writing new ones? What if the most dangerous thing about your limits is how believable they sound when you whisper them to yourself at night? You are not the wall. You are the one who decides whether to keep painting them or to open a door. Because every time you believe something new about yourself, something kinder, braver, truer, a boundary softens, and the world somehow expands. There's a mirror you carry, one that no one else can see. It doesn't show your face. It reflects something deeper, the shape you believe you take in the world. And every morning, whether you notice or not, you check that mirror before you begin the day. Not with your eyes, but with your thought, with the quiet story you tell yourself, this is who I am. But what if that story isn't the truth? What if it's a habit, a well-worn thought, repeated not because it's real, but because it's familiar? We often confuse repetition with reality. Tell yourself for long enough that you're not enough, and it starts to feel like a fact. But facts don't change when you wake up tired. Habits do. Your self-image, the way you see yourself when no one's watching, was shaped over time, like a groove in stone. It came from voices long gone, from moments that stung, from glances you misread, and failures you held too close. It wasn't carved by truth. It was carved by repetition. And repetition can be rewritten. If you've told yourself for years that you're awkward in groups, you'll enter every room with that belief guiding your steps. If you've whispered, I never finish what I start, you'll walk away from things before giving yourself a chance to stay. But not because that's who you are, because that's who you've practiced being. We don't become ourselves all at once. We become ourselves through tiny agreements, soft decisions we don't even realize we're making. And the beautiful, unsettling truth is, you can renegotiate them. The way you see yourself isn't permanent. It's just practiced. Like a pianist who has learned the wrong notes. You don't need to smash the piano. You just need to start learning a new song. Slowly, patiently, kindly. What if instead of trying to believe in yourself overnight, you simply practiced seeing yourself differently? What if for a few moments each day, you caught the lie as it showed up? I always mess things up. I don't belong here. I'm not good with people. And chose to hold it in your hands, instead of swallowing it whole. You can change a habit, not with force, but with faithfulness. The same way a river smooths a stone over time, new thoughts, gently repeated, can polish the rough edges of your self-image. You don't need a breakthrough, you need a rhythm. One new belief, one moment of grace, one voice inside you, softer, warmer, reminding you that your reflection can change without changing your worth. Ask yourself, if your self-image is just a habit, what kind of habit are you ready to build? What would it be like to greet yourself each morning with curiosity instead of criticism? To be surprised by your own growth instead of trapped in your past? You don't have to become someone new. You just have to unlearn who you were told to be. And with time, that mirror you carry inside, the one shaped by old stories, will begin to reflect something else. Not perfection, not fantasy, but truth. A truth made of kindness, of quiet courage, and of the deep knowing that you are not your habits. You are the one who gets to choose them. There is a version of you that the world has never met, not because it's hidden, but because you've kept the door closed. You've felt glimpses of it in moments of clarity and quiet ambition, in the things that stir your soul when no one else is watching. But when the time comes to step fully into it, something pulls you back. Fear? Maybe, but not the loud kind. Not the fear of failure, but the fear of becoming more than you've ever allowed yourself to be. Because once you step into that identity, once you say, this is who I am, You can't keep pretending you're less. And that's terrifying. We tell ourselves we're waiting for the right time, but most often we're waiting for permission. Permission to change, to take ourselves seriously, to stop apologizing for wanting something deeper, brighter, bolder, but no one can give you that permission. It doesn't come in a moment. It comes in a decision to no longer be loyal to the smaller version of you. Think of the identities we carry. They aren't always chosen. Many were handed to us by family, by friends, by fear. We become the quiet one, the fixer, the one who never finishes anything, the one who can't handle pressure, the one who's always been this way. And even when we grow, even when we feel something more calling us, we hesitate. Why? Because change demands grief. To become more, you have to let go of the comfort of being less. You have to say goodbye to the excuses that kept you safe, to the self-image that let you hide, to the people who only knew how to love your former reflection. And that's not easy. But ask yourself, how long will you keep living just outside the life that's meant for you? How long will you delay your arrival because someone once convinced you to play a role you were never meant to keep? Here's the quiet truth. Your next level isn't about gaining anything. It's about claiming something that's already yours. The difference between who you are and who you could be is not a matter of talent, timing, or tools. It's a matter of identity. What are you willing to believe about yourself, not just on paper but in your bones? Because the life you're capable of, the one that whispers to you in moments of stillness, won't arrive through waiting. It arrives through ownership. To claim an identity is to say, I will show up as if I already belong to the life I want, not because I've proven it, but because I've chosen it. You don't grow into greatness by accident. You grow into it by acceptance. Acceptance that you are more than what you've survived, more than what you've been told, more than the doubts you've rehearsed. There is a future version of you, living in a bigger story, and they are waiting for you to stop pretending you're not the author. So begin, gently, boldly, step into the identity you've been circling for years, the one you thought was too big, too soon, too much, because it's not. It's yours. And the longer you wait to claim it, the longer your life waits to rise and meet it. There's a pattern that shapes our lives more than we realize. It's not what we say we want. It's what we're willing to tolerate. Think about that for a moment. We speak of dreams, of love, success, peace, purpose. But beneath the surface, something deeper is guiding our choices, our sense of what we believe we deserve. Not consciously, not out loud, but quietly, in the way we accept what hurts, in the way we stay too long, in the way we explain away being treated as less. You may tell yourself you want respect, but if deep down you don't believe you're worthy of it, you'll allow disrespect again and again and call it patience, or grace, or realism. Because we don't rise to the level of our desires, we fall to the level of our self-permission. What you believe you deserve sets the ceiling on your life, and you rarely outgrow it until you notice it. Have you ever found yourself shrinking in a room that required you to stand tall? Not because anyone asked you to, but because part of you believed tallness wasn't yours to claim. That's the quiet work of unworthiness. It doesn't shout, it whispers. You should be grateful just to be here. Don't ask for too much. Don't make people uncomfortable by wanting more. And so we learn to survive on scraps. Scraps of love, scraps of peace, scraps of recognition. Not because that's all that's available, but because that's all we think we're allowed to take. It's not always about others. Sometimes we betray ourselves with our own limits. You procrastinate on your dreams, not because you're lazy, but because part of you still questions whether you're good enough to live them. You settle in relationships, not because you don't long for more, but because a voice inside says, maybe this is the best I can give. But what if that voice wasn't yours to begin with? What if it was planted long ago by a parent who didn't know how to love, a teacher who spoke with bitterness, a moment of failure that etched too deep? The point is not blame. The point is awareness. Because once you realize that your sense of deserving was learned, you begin to understand it can be unlearned. Deserving isn't about entitlement. It's about alignment. It's the quiet choice to stop betraying your own soul in the name of being polite, to start allowing in your life only what reflects your true worth, Not the version of you that's been scarred and silenced, but the one who remembers what it means to feel whole. So how do we begin? With boundary, not the harsh kind, but the kind that say, I will no longer shrink to fit where I don't belong. With self-talk, not the kind that inflates, but the kind that gently reminds you, you are allowed to want more than survival, and with choices that don't wait for others to value you, but begin with valuing yourself, even when it feels unfamiliar, because that's how we change what we allow, not by force, but by remembrance, by slowly returning to the truth that we were never meant to beg for the things our soul needs to thrive. So ask yourself quietly and honestly, what am I allowing that I would never advise someone I love to accept? And what would my life look like if I began to act as though I deserved more? Because you do. And when you start believing it, not just with your words but with your choices, your world rearranges to meet you there. Imagine a child standing in front of you, barefoot, eyes wide, heart open. They've just tried something and failed. They're looking up, unsure, searching for how to feel about it. Now what would you say? Would you scoff? Would you tell them they're worthless, stupid, behind? Would you mock their effort or question their worth? Of course not. You'd kneel beside them. You'd speak softly, not to soothe weakness, but to protect what's still growing. You'd remind them of their courage, of how every failure is a step forward. You'd speak as someone who sees not just who they are but who they're becoming. Now let me ask you this. Why don't you speak to yourself that way? Most of us live with a voice inside that doesn't speak love. It echoes judgment. A voice we didn't choose, but one we've allowed to stay. The voice of criticism. The voice of not enough. The voice that sees every mistake as confirmation, not opportunity. But that voice, it's not truth. It's just familiar. Maybe it sounds like a parent. Maybe it mimics an old teacher or the ache of rejection. Maybe it was born in silence from all the kindness you never received. But whoever or whatever shaped it, it's you who continues to listen. And here's the quiet revelation. You don't have to. You can change the voice. You can change how you speak to yourself. And when you do, everything else begins to because how you speak to yourself is how you experience the world. When your inner voice is cruel, even love feels like danger. Even praise feels like suspicion. Even success feels like a mistake waiting to happen. But when your inner voice is kind, the world becomes less threatening. You walk with a steadier step. You try again, because failure no longer means you're unworthy. It just means you're alive. The way you speak to yourself sets the tone for every relationship you'll have. Not because others hear it, but because it shapes what you believe you deserve. Would you stay in a relationship with someone who talked to you the way you talk to yourself? What would it be like just for a day? To become your own ally? To whisper encouragement instead of rehearsing shame? To say I see how hard you're trying, instead of you never get it right? To meet your reflection with softness instead of scrutiny? This isn't about blind positivity, it's about honest kindness. The kind that says, you can do better but you're still worthy now. It's about becoming the voice you needed when you were young, and the one you still need now. Because we don't rise through harshness, we rise through trust. And trust is built when the voice inside becomes safe. So here's a gentle practice. The next time you fail, pause. Don't react, just ask. What would someone who loved me say right now? And say it. Say it. To yourself. Not because it feels natural but because it feels new. New means change is happening. Over time that voice becomes stronger. It drowns out the old echoes. It begins to write a new rhythm inside you. One where your worth isn't up for debate. And soon, you notice, the world starts treating you the way you treat yourself. Not all at once, but steadily. People respond differently. Opportunities unfold, and the reflection in the mirror stops flinching. You deserve a voice inside you that feels like home. One that lifts, steadies, and reminds you, you were always enough, even before you proved anything. So speak to yourself, the way someone who loved you purely would, and you'll find that the world has been waiting to echo that same love back. So much of the world's noise tells you this. Be more, be better, be different. The books, the slogans, the endless scroll of lives that look shinier than yours. It whispers, you're behind, reinvent yourself, start over.
And you start to believe that transformation means erasing yourself, that in order to be whole, you have to become someone else. But what if that's not true? What if change isn't about becoming, but about returning, not forward, but inward? Because somewhere along the way you picked up roles you didn't choose. You adapted to survive, to be accepted, to avoid pain. You became agreeable, or invisible, or impressive. You wore the smile, played the part, said the right thing, and slowly, quietly, you moved further from your center. That version of you, the one that flinches, overthinks, hides, performs, was not born from your soul. It was built in reaction to a world that made you doubt it. We talk about personal growth like it's a construction project. But what if it's more like an excavation, peeling away the layers, the armor, the false identities, the stories someone else handed you, and you never thought to question? What if the life you're longing for doesn't require you to be someone new, but simply to stop pretending to be someone you never were? You were not born doubting your voice. You were not born ashamed of your body. You were not born afraid to take up space. All of that was taught, conditioned, absorbed, and anything learned can be unlearned. We chase reinvention, but maybe what we truly need is remembrance. To remember the child who loved without fear, the teenager who dreamed wildly before the world laughed, the quiet self who once believed in beauty without asking permission. That's the version of you that can still lead the way. You don't have to become some polished idea. You don't have to prove your worth through constant productivity. You don't need to perform courage. You only need to remove what's blocking it. Think of it like this. A sculpture isn't built from scratch. It's revealed by removing what doesn't belong. The artist doesn't add clay. They take away stone. They trust that something beautiful is already within. That's how life works too. Your purpose, your peace, your power, they're already inside you. They've just been covered by years of trying to be acceptable instead of authentic. You are not broken. You are buried. And the journey forward isn't about adding layers. It's about coming home to who you were before the world taught you to doubt it. So pause. Ask yourself, what parts of me feel heavy? Not because they're mine, but because I've been carrying them for too long. But to return gently, quietly, to your real self. Because when you stop being the version of you that was shaped by fear, you naturally start living the life shaped by truth. Not a louder life, not a perfect one, but a life that fits you so honestly, you no longer feel the need to escape it. And that's the secret most people miss. You don't need to become someone else to change your life. You just need to stop being the version of you that was never real to begin with. And the moment you do, you'll see it. Your life doesn't need a makeover. It needs your permission to be lived as